Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another expat. This is episode 81. Happy New Year officially to all of you. I recorded the previous episode before the year officially changed. So this is the first one, Sunday, January 11th. What a year we have ahead. Now, if you hear, you probably know the podcast, but if it's the first time you're listening, very briefly, this is a weekly podcast of random thoughts, news, observation as I try to navigate life, getting close to my mid-30s, away from Greece into Berlin, being a new parent, loving technology, addicted to reading headlines and news, and as a middle child, I didn't get enough attention, and this is why I have a microphone right now in front of my face, and I'm grateful for your ears listening in. Now, by the nature of the podcast, very often the topics can range wildly from personal life into stories, thoughts, or things that are happening now in the world, usually in geopolitics, in science, in tech, in space. And you know what? I wanted not to do geopolitics, but I can't. Everyone is shitting their pants now, and what's happening is top of mind to many of the people I speak. So yeah, when I started this podcast, I thought it would be more light. I tried not to do geopolitics, but over the past years, there's so much happening that will guaranteed shape our lifetime that it seems impossible not to pay attention, not to look in that direction, not to have these thoughts. Now, I've said in previous episodes, we can all go and grow tomatoes. I have this summer house in Greece that I put up for grabs. If anyone wants as a plan Z to just go there and figure things out. I even considered renaming this podcast to things like, quote, we need an alien intervention, or, quote, I will go grow tomatoes. How right was that? In any case, here's an episode today with some things you might already know, definitely some things you didn't. And just the last disclaimer, I don't always give full context. I want this episode to have a lot of topics, so I don't dive always deep in them. But hey, that's part of the beauty. You should always rely on your own looking at things. This podcast is one of your inputs, right? If one of the topics I touched looks interesting, go read it up. I'm not perfect, and big part of this podcast is an open mic. I speak my thoughts, not much of a script, a lot of improv. So there you have it. That's your disclaimer. And now let's get going. Oi, where should we start? Should we start with the US taking over Venezuela? It doesn't matter that the majority of drugs are coming into the US from other places, or that they pardoned an ex-president that had trafficked tons and tons. No, this intervention in Venezuela is definitely about the drug trafficking. But by the way, since the US is now there, they're thinking of taking control of the oil. What a coincidence. And as much as it blows my mind that this military operation actually happened, you don't have time to really process it, because in the same day, the big orange man announces that he is interested in continuing. Why not in Colombia, and why not in Cuba, and why not in the rest of the neighborhood? And as you're there thinking, what on earth is going on? The orange man is going completely nuts. Then he throws Greenland into the mix. And these things are happening in the speed of light. You wake up every day and you wonder, what happened at the other side of the world while I was sleeping? Let's try to catch up. Do you know that feeling if you take some time off from work and you think you have time off, but you know very well that everything is there, it's still waiting for you? Like that Monday after coming back, you need to catch up. It's not that you start where you left off. Well, this is how it feels many mornings for me, because I need to catch up with what the crazy orange man has been doing while I was sleeping, what has been said, who has been threatened, so I can adjust the type of stress and fear I can have in the day. So things are not looking good. Actually, today, there's a news out that Trump asked his top military officials to put together a plan about the military takeover of Greenland, just to scope it out, An anonymous source is saying that they're trying to make his attention go into other topics, such as Venezuela or what's happening in Iran, so he doesn't. It's like a toddler. This is what I do to our 1-year-old child. If he's focused too much on the wrong thing, like attacking our robot vacuum, I just point out to something else, less destructive, and I say, hey, how about you have your attention here in the oven drawer? And then this is how it works. It sounds like this is what is happening right now in Washington, D.C. And going into war is a pretty good recipe for authoritarian leaders to make sure that a lot of the other things are not looked at. If there is too much going on, starting a war just resets the picture. It's now survival. We need to lead this fight. So please stop bugging me about all the things that are wrong. We have serious business here. But yeah, who would have thought Trump saying that Greenland they need it for security, otherwise the Russians and the Chinese will take it, and he's trying to create that narrative. I think it's been 2 years now that he hasn't been able to finish the war in Ukraine, where Russia is attacking, the war he promised to end in 1 day when he would be in office. And it also seems pretty clear that he's very aligned with the Kremlin's agenda on how to end the war. He's aligned with the Kremlin on a lot of things. So it sounds very convenient to now present Russia as an existential threat through Greenland and focusing there. But the reality is, I feel bad for Europe. Everyone is feeling bad for Europe. We've been abandoned. It's questionable how good of an idea it was, the setup that Europe had before, super pacifist. And it would be great if the world worked this way, but it suddenly doesn't. And then what Machiavelli said is, if someone is rigging the rules of the game, then you're screwed. And this is what's happening here. The rules of this game of global powers existing and keeping balances is now out of the window. There is no international law. Trump said the other day he doesn't believe in international law. He said the only thing that can stop him is himself, his own brain, nothing else. So we're very clearly experiencing it's a power narrative. Whoever is the strongest gets to be right in what they are pursuing. And this is the most worrying times to be in, because it also puts a precedent, right? If one of the big powers wants to say, hey, the US wanted Venezuela because it made sense for them, so they just took it. This is what I'm doing here in my Ukraine or North Europe or Taiwan. I need this. I need this land. Otherwise. So yeah, I like to be hopeful, but I also feel it's naive to think that something so complex as the global balance of powers now is going to enter a course of more stability, because there is nothing pointing in that direction. It's been for years that everything is pointing in a different direction. So this nationalistic, self-fueled aggression that we are experiencing will continue. And Europe is caught between a rock and a hard place. That's the expression in English. It sounds too kind. In Greek, we say that in front of you is the edge of a cliff, so the void basically, and behind you is falling into a river canyon. So there's a fall to happen in both places. I guess in the expression being between a rock and a hard place means you will get squished. I hope we don't get squished, and maybe it's time for aliens to come intervene. By the time the Orange Man has made 10 decisions as he's flying on a plane and just rumbling his mind on reporters, the EU needs to call all of its members and make a council and try to agree, which I don't know what the solution is, but the pace, the reaction times, and the display of EU as one team are all topics that make it even harder. Which reminds me, I remember reading that the Danish intelligence unit or their Ministry of Defense, I don't remember whom, many months ago, maybe I reported it, they made a unit and their task is to stay up all night and collect all of the information of what's happening to the US to have a morning briefing to everyone, which is basically what I was describing some time before. There's so much happening on the other side of the globe while we are sleeping that every morning you need to catch up. And if this is a worry for me, a random person working at an office job, I can understand it. Denmark made this little unit to just stay up all night, see all the crazy things that are being said, and then brief them in the morning, which must be paying off right now. But looking around in the world, we also have Iran at the moment having these very big demonstrations. What started the demonstrations is that the economy is collapsing. The inflation went up to the roof. People cannot afford necessities. Of course, there are many other topics that are fueling people to go on the streets. But the one that did it was this impossibility of the country's currency being again devalued, making it impossible overnight to afford anything. That pushed people out. A lot of talk is there on what does the next day look like, who will stay in power, who's going to push for a change of regime there. And after reading some stuff online, I have to say one thing, that the one that might be going to power now, he's the son of someone who was really, really bad in the past. So a lot of Iranians are saying, yeah, it's good that we get a regime change, but the option of who seems to be coming, if there is a regime change, is not great either, especially for minorities and the austerity and the nationalism there. It's more complex because there are many different tribes that are considered Persians in Iran. So some of these rulers in power are racist towards specific cultural groups and minorities, but Iran has a lot of them. So anyway, that's just a note. Let's see how the next day looks like and how much other powers intervene or not. But oil seems to be very high in everyone's agenda. Now, I want to complain about one more thing. Have you heard of Polymarket? Polymarket is a website, a betting website, a market betting website in the US, where basically you can bet on everything. And when I say on everything, there are bets in there about, will the US strike Iran before January 15th? And people are betting. Will the US invade Venezuela? This was an active bet in there. And it's full of war and fear-mongering bets. It has a lot of sports as well, but it has a lot of politics and a lot of conflicts, which is such a bizarre world to live in. Apparently, there are people who are betting on the war of Ukraine and Russia and who's going to take which areas by when. In the same way, there are bets in there about Israel and its operations in the West Bank, in Palestine, in Iran. And there are some people who are clearly insider traders, so maybe someone in the army, that are just making bets because they know military action will happen. So there is zero regulation there. And I decided to check it out a few days ago, and I was disgusted by the state of the world. I was also disgusted because a small part of me was thinking, oh, I would bet on this thing or the other thing, just because I'm curious and I think things might happen. But the biggest part that wins in my brain is how fucked up it is to have something like that. I do not understand how it's legal in the US. It is illegal in EU, so it's banned. EU has a concept on betting where you can bet on things that have fixed results. So if it's a football match, someone will win. If it's a championship, if it is even in Eurovision, you can choose which country ends up where. But to be betting on active, ongoing social, geopolitical, military stuff is not only illegal, but also in Germany, you could get in trouble not only as a platform that does these things, but the users themselves who plays these types of bets could also be in legal trouble. So what I wanted to say is like Polymarket is twisted. It's making billions of money. It's one of the biggest businesses in the US right now, if you look it up. I understand why it's making so much money, but it's also scary to log in and on the front page be seeing every single possible war that could be happening and people betting there. How much of that could shape what actually happens if there are billions in and if there is no control over who might be an insider trader. But these are some things that are happening in Germany. The Chancellor Merz, he said that if not enough people are going voluntary to the army, it would be a possibility to explore mandatory service. He did actually say that, but we can park that for now and more for Germany later. Now, if you're still with me, I have one piece of news coming from China, because we didn't talk about China. It's not a military one. It is a power build-up one. But here's the thing. There is this whole chip war happening. We need chips. Everyone needs chips. They live inside every single device, whether it's military or AI or anything. Who can make the most chips? Who has the most advanced technology there? And all of that. So there is a real war going on about the resources and the knowledge of chip manufacturing. Who has most? Who can produce more? Now, over the past decades, China has been trying to slowly get intel and materials and start making its own chips. And the US has been trying to stop them. Here's an interesting breakthrough. In the whole chip making chain, if you look at the process, there is actually one part that the EU is making. How great is that? There is one machine that is only made by one company in the world. It's a Dutch company called ASML, Advanced Semiconductor Materials Lithography. And what is this machine? It's a gigantic machine that can basically design chips. These machines cost something like $500 million. So this Dutch company is the world's sole producer of these. They are called EUV machines. EUV means extreme ultraviolet lithography machines. So if you have a machine like that, you can make the most advanced type of computer chips. It is creating these incredibly fine patterns into silicon wafers that make them smaller and more powerful for AI and all that. Now the news here is that China managed to develop a prototype of an EUV system, and it's entering the game to challenge this monopoly. Now, the world thought that China would need at least 10 to 15 years to catch up in the chip-making capabilities that they have. So this is an interesting news of shaking up a little bit the power balance, because they did build this EUV prototype, which signals pretty good progress towards domestic chip making. But while some countries are continuing a course towards the evolution of their technology, some other countries are crumbling down with duct tape and sticks. And this is Greece, because if you missed that, the Greek airspace went black for one day. So what's the story? In early January, a few days ago, Greek airspace experienced a nationwide communications failure. So everything shut down, not because of the weather or because of traffic or because of a strike. All communications went down. In aviation, they have these frequencies that they use to speak, the towers with the pilots and all of that. Well, multiple aviation frequencies went down all at the same time, and these are different systems. So primary radio channels, backups, parts of the wider telecom network that links these control centers. There are these Hellas-Com lines. All of this became unreliable or completely unavailable. So flights were halted, aircraft that were already in the air were delayed or diverted, and Eurocontrol had to step in to help manage the situation. This is an EU body. So let that sink in. Multiple different systems, all malfunctioning at once, causing the entire day to have no flights over Greece, a little bit of global chaos, a very big hit in the PR of the country as a destination, only to be magically come back to life at 5 p.m. that day without anyone knowing why and how the problem was fixed. Aviation, redundancy is everything. So you have independent systems and they are designed so if one fails, it doesn't become everyone's problem. Here we have several layers that fail together, and then after some time they all came back. No clear explanation, no confirmed root cause, just, okay, now it's working again. Officially, the authorities said it wasn't a cyber attack. Fine. But I'm curious, what is any other way to explain it? And they haven't made a statement that explains what happened. Because when unrelated systems drop at the same time, professionals don't panic, they get concerned. It usually means that the shared infrastructure, aging equipment, or design choices were never fixed. But one of the most laughable, in my opinion, reactions was that they were trying to figure out that day what's happening. Different services that cannot coordinate with each other because it's Greece. We're trying to go at the different mountains that there are antennas to check the frequencies and check what might be interfering. And it felt like everyone was panicking left and right with zero plan. And the announcements they made afterwards tried to cover it up, but it really shows that I don't think people know what they were doing or supposed to do in this state of emergency. I mean, the people in the positions of power that should be the ones reacting to it. So at some point, this is the laughable part, they put an aircraft up in the air, and they said that they put an aircraft to check if there are like interferences happening through the air. So what? So they put a plane up to go and do what? Start looking in the sky to see if there is a giant jammer throwing frequencies? We didn't have a better way to surveil the vast airspace of the entire country. We had to put up a plane just flying around and people looking. I'm not sure what they were expecting to find from the sky, rather than a PR stunt that someone at least tried something. Because if interference happened through the air, I don't think it would wait politely to be spotted by one plane. But to summarize this up, there's one thing that is this incident, but there's also another part of the story because the tech that is being used is decades old. The air traffic controllers and technical staff in Greece has been warning for years that the core systems are super old, upgrades never happened, some were partially implemented or postponed, and actually the EU has stepped in because there are required navigation and communication standards that Greece is not meeting. Also, staffing shortages are not helping. The EU has stepped in some years now with infringement procedures, with court referrals, fines, monitoring. Greece is on the list of countries that need to catch up on their systems. This is not a confirmed attack. It did happen one day after the attack on Venezuela, where our prime minister jumped in first to say, amongst other things, that it's not the right time to be looking at the legitimacy of this operation, but to ensure that there is a stable transition into blah, 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 blah. A very dangerous statement, giving a foothold to similar statements from other countries. So some conspiracy theorists are saying that maybe he made some people angry and our airspace got a cyber attack of one day, just as a reminder of how vulnerable we are. So I don't know what's the solution to this. Everyone tries to put it under the carpet and say that we are trying to modernize the equipment and running fast to meet the deadlines for making all equipment new. But this is almost irrelevant to what happened because the scale and breadth and consistency and perseverance of this attack could not have happened by chance. Oh wow, we're almost there. We're almost there, I promise. I want to just throw you some funky news on Berlin. And then, in the end, we've lasted so long, I'll share with you the best news of 2025. I had to Google this. I wanted to keep this episode nice. So I've searched for nice news and we'll see what happens there. But before that, here's a quick one on Berlin. First up, everything is frozen here. It's minus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 11, 12 degrees. It goes up to minus 12 degrees. So that means that everything is covered in ice and snow. It's a weird combo because there are no clouds. The sun is out. There is not crazy wind. There is not crazy rain. Like, there is none of the things that make bad weather annoying, in my opinion, besides super cold, very, very low temperatures, which means that some of the lakes are freezing, some of the canals are freezing, people are going out taking photos of these white landscapes. So that part does look nice. On the other hand, the government has been reminding everyone. In Germany, there is this rule: you need to have supplies that can last you for, I think, 2 weeks, in case there is a failure or, in case of emergency. So this is a general thing, but they remind us a bit more now. It's not the nicest time in the world to be reminded to have your emergency stuff ready. But Berlin also did experience an extremist attack on the power grid. So there were 50,000 households, I believe, between 30 and 50,000, that had no power because an extremist group attacked the power grid and caused very serious damages, causing people to have no electricity and sometimes no running water for almost a week. Now, Germany was quick to respond. There were many shelters and ways that these people could get help. But having an attack like this in the capital city of one of the strongest EU countries feels weird, and there have been quite a few disruptive events in the past years. I've reported on some, but there have been attacks on the power grid before. There have been attacks on train lines, disrupting train services. There have been attacks at the airport, disrupting the airport. And some might say that this is a result of a hybrid war that is already ongoing. Remember all these drone sightings that were happening at the end of 2025? They were appearing on top of cities, on top of airports. They had to shut everything down. So some say that an important part of this is not the actual harm that will cause, but how it shapes the public's opinion and the feeling of safety or worry or distrust to the government and its ability to provide and protect and all of that. So it's more an attack on society itself when it happens. It's not super clear who is behind. There have been many of these sabotages in smaller or larger scale. For this one, there is a group that said that they've done it, but there is speculation whether the actual motives are the ones that have been put out. In any case, these people have power now. I don't know what I would do if our power was out with work, with a child. And I am annoyed that I even have to think about that. But this is the state. If you're in Greece, you might be thinking of, oh, is the airspace going to be open today? If you're in Germany, you might be thinking, will my power go out? Or maybe you're lucky and you're thinking none of that, and then I envy you. Last point on this, attacks on power grids is something that we will experience a lot in case there are global conflicts. I still remember from a cybersecurity lesson I had in uni and from my own research and hearing podcasts like the Darknet Diaries that brings stories of cybersecurity. There is this concept of a zero-day exploit. What that means is if you find a vulnerability in a system, if you find a hole, if you find a way to hack it, then the way for that to be fixed is that you first need to get noticed. So if you are the bad guy and you enter a system, if you just enter and do nothing, no one will know you're in. You found a loophole that gets you in, and you're in, and then you're just there, but you haven't changed anything, you haven't done anything, you haven't actioned. And there is this concept in cybersecurity called a zero-day. A zero-day vulnerability is one that no one has ever heard before, so you can be in the system undetected. And the moment you do something, that's when cybersecurity will catch up. That's when someone will notice you're in the wrong system, that you shouldn't be, and you're doing something that shouldn't happen, and then they will try to kick you out. So it's called a zero-day because it's 0 days since the incident is known. The time you do something bad, that's when the clock will start ticking for the vulnerability to be fixed. I hope this wasn't too complicated, but my point is that now in the world there are many dormant viruses or exploits or hacks that are just sitting in the right place to be activated. Whether this is a huge botnet, like an army of devices that have been hacked and can all act together as one network and launch an attack somewhere, which is a very common thing, especially with the Internet of Things. Your dishwasher is connected to the Wi-Fi now. Your robot vacuum cleaner is connected to the Wi-Fi. Your smart lamp is connected to your Wi-Fi. All of these are Internet devices, many of whom don't have the security standards that are needed. And many we never update over the years. So when years go by, hackers find more ways to do stuff. So botnets can be millions of compromised devices that have abilities to do things in a network. It doesn't matter if they are a dishwasher or a computer or a smart camera. If you can make that device try to access a page, try to send code somewhere and all that, it will still do it. So back to the point, there are dormant hacks waiting to be activated, and one of the main dangers of that is hacks on power grids. So if state-level adversaries, like if countries have found a way to get into the power grid of another country and plant a virus there, and then they know that when they need it, they can turn it on, what a great tool that would be to give them an advantage. We did see last year, remember how Spain lost power for a few days, maybe Spain and Portugal, was a very big thing. They were trying to figure out what happened. They were saying maybe renewable sources of energy overloaded the network, and then the network reacted in a weird way that caused it to collapse. They never quite figured out why the power went down, and they just continued with their lives in the same way that I think the Greek authorities will not find out why everything on our air communications went down, and they will just continue their lives. And please note that when the big orange man invaded Venezuela, they took down the power in the city as the attacks were happening. I don't know if they did it through a military strike or throwing a missile in an energy factory. I don't think they did. I think they had a non-destructive way to do it. And I just want to point that out as something that can happen. And power grids have some very old technologies in them. Yes, some of their computers, some of their systems can be up to date, but so much of that infrastructure that is in place is vulnerable to all sorts of attacks. In the same way that someone can identify what is the one point of connecting the voltages and do an extremist attack there, burn that down and put 5,000 people out of energy in Berlin, some of that doesn't need to be physically done. You can send a virus that increases the voltage in the wrong way and causes a fire to start. But now this is me going in the what if place, and I won't spend any more time in it. This has been a long podcast. I've brought a lot of thoughts out there that are not the nicest. I guess today you are my diary or my therapist. I don't know how many of these things are in your head or worry you. Maybe it is in a vague format. It doesn't become too specific, but you do feel the uncertainty of times. And I guess I'm speaking into that voice. But let's enter our last bit. The part I try to keep nice. I search for some nice news, and I will go with you through one by one. There is the Happy Broadcast, a famous page that collects good news, and they made a post about their most liked happy news of 2025. Let's read them one by one. First up, if you write something down and then throw it away, research confirms it's an amazing anger management technique. So if you write down on a piece of paper your reaction to something negative and then destroy that paper, it eliminates anger almost entirely. This is a piece of news that got voted as one of the best ones. So write down your frustrations and throw them away. Maybe this is what is this podcast for me. I just say the things that annoy me and then I can pretend to continue my life. Second piece of news, California made history by officially banning cat declawing, a cruel and outdated cosmetic procedure that causes lifelong pain and trauma. What? Let cats be cats. I didn't even know this thing existed. Declawing? Are people removing the nails from the cat? So what? This is horrible. Yes, this is cruel. Is this a cosmetic procedure? Oh my god. How desperate the times are if the top news of 2025 have in the second or third place, I don't know where I am, the news that California stopped people from removing the nails of their cats for cosmetic reasons. This is too low. I was hoping for something better. This is too small. This doesn't tip the scale. I'm sorry. This makes the scale even worse. Oi, oi, oi. Okay, next up. Let's continue. A large study from Australia shows that dance is better than any other form of exercise for improving mental health. Okay, that's a good one. It is the form of exercise that consistently improves the symptoms of those with depression. Okay, is that positive news? I guess so. Okay, people, so if you think that you're having depression, just hit the floor, just dance away every day, put your favorite dance song and just shake it, and things will be better. Okay, off to the next one. Do you want to slow brain aging? Oh yes, please. Take more naps. A new study suggests that regular daytime napping slows the rate at which our brains shrink and can keep them younger as much as 6.5 years. I currently don't have time for my normal sleep. I work a 9 to 5 and I have a 1-year-old baby. I can barely shower. Maybe I can nap in the shower. But if you can nap, you should nap. If it's difficult to nap, put some white noise, take a sleeping mask. It's not a shame to have a sleeping mask. You're not gay for having a sleeping mask if you're a guy. You're just taking care of yourself, and that's more important than what the world thinks. So find your way to make your naps and help your brain not shrink. All right, next one. We have about 5 of these to go. For animal lovers, here's some good news. Fur is going out of fashion fast. Global production has plummeted by 85% in the past 10 years, reaching its lowest level. I mean, I have to say now, with all the news coming out about how most of the synthetic clothing is just leaching microplastics into our bodies, our skin, and the environment, I wonder what is the most eco-friendly way to keep yourself super duper warm without having to have any of the bad materials that make clothes. I'm not saying yes to fur, but if I had to choose between a real fur and a fake fur that already exists, yeah, I might choose a real one to just be closer to nature. Does that sound stupid? Maybe. Let's continue. Next news, turns out a little scare can do wonders. Watching horror movies actually gives your brain a safe space and a playground for fear. And they say that this is actually helpful because it has this playground. When real life anxiety shows up, the chances are higher that you will stay cool and collected. Wow, that reminds me that nothing can hurt me, I'm already dead inside. So if your brain had its playground of fear through horror movies, then it can cope better. Oh, here's one relevant with the other one. Second-hand clothing is going mainstream. Yes, the resale clothing market is growing 5 times faster than new retail and is projected to keep gaining ground. I fully agree to that. Time to buy something better for less. And one of the big reasons, in my opinion, that someone should consider second-hand clothing is also studies show that new clothing is literally every time you wash it, it takes microplastics out. Second-hand clothes are often better because they've already been washed many times. And this matters because new clothes shed the most microplastics during the first washes. There are different dyes for the color, surface finishes, and loose synthetic fibers that all leach out into the wastewater, especially when fabrics are new. Once a garment has been worn and washed repeatedly, a large portion of that shedding has already happened. Many modern clothes are also treated with PFAs, these forever chemicals we talk about sometimes, and that's to make them stain resistant, water repellent, wrinkle free, and These treatments slowly wash out over time, meaning that new clothes are a better source of chemical release than older ones. So everything that you're buying that is made out of polyester, nylon, acrylic, elastane, spandex, lycra, fleece, all of these have microplastics and are leaching that into the water. And then other materials that are linked to PFAs, not the fiber itself, but the finish they put on the fabric, is polyester blends, so water or stain-resistant clothing, nylon, which is used for outdoor and athletic wear, rain jackets, windbreakers, activewear, yoga pants, uniforms and workwear. I know it's a lot. I agree. It's difficult to live in this world without feeling you could be doing better. Natural fibers like cotton, wool, linen, hemp, and silk shed far fewer synthetic microplastics, though they can still be chemically treated. So that's the bottom line buying secondhand. Isn't just that it's cheaper, it usually means you're saving the world from producing new clothes with everything that means for fast fashion and water consumption and all of that. But it usually means it's better for you because you have less microplastic shedding and fewer fresh chemical releases and all of that. Two last news. This all seems so tiny compared to what's happening, but let's try to keep it positive. Small things we can do. Even if it makes us feel better, I guess it's good. So, forest bathing. The Japanese do it. It's been now prescribed into some countries as legit thing your doctor can tell you. Just go out and walk in the woods. This has a lot of beneficial effects for our brain, our body, and everything. But why don't take it a step further? Hugging a tree for 21 seconds has scientifically proven benefits for our health because trains transfer oxytocin, the feel-good hormone, through touch. They do that. What? And this improves immunity and lowers stress. Oh my God. Go touch some grass. Go hug a tree. Maybe I should open up a tree farm and a hipster cafe where people can have a coffee and go hug their tree. Because sometimes what you're missing is not the knowing what that hugging the tree is good for you. It's just the permission. You feel stupid to go hug a tree. You feel judged. So why don't I create a free judgment place in which you can come have a nice coffee and hug the tree like everyone else does. Everyone is hugging the trees. And maybe that is part of my plan to go grow tomatoes in the summer house in Greece with all of my most faithful followers. So if you're listening this far, you've earned your spot. Just drop me a comment saying Tomatoes Project, and I will make sure you're on the list. When shit goes down, you'll get the coordinates, bring your survival bag, bring your clothes, but not the synthetic ones, the good ones. Then we will all meet. All right. Last piece of news for 2020. Just to know that the Ozzy Osbourne and the Black Sabbath concert actually raised 190 million euros, and they donated all of that to cure Parkinson's and into children's hospitals. So their last tour was all raising money to be donated to cure Parkinson and for children's hospital. Really well done. That's a big amount of money and a nice last act from Ozzy. And here we wrap it up. This has been a very long episode. I'll see how I maybe have to chop it up into 2 parts. But if not, I cannot thank you enough for staying with me all the way to the end. I'll be around next week or the one after. I have been me, you have been you, and until next time, I salute you. Ciao!